The night shift at Europa Station was usually quiet. Most of the time, John Miller just watched the endless stream of data from deep space sensors while drinking his third cup of coffee. But tonight was different. The main screen lit up with alerts he had never seen before. "That's impossible," he whispered, checking the readings again. The energy signatures were unlike anything in their database. He pressed the emergency alert button, knowing this would wake up half of Earth's military command. Thousands of miles away, Captain Tom Reed was sleeping in his quarters on the Earth Defense Fleet flagship Guardian when the alert woke him. He quickly put on his uniform and rushed to the bridge, his heart racing with each step. "Report," he ordered as he entered the bridge. The crew was already at their stations, faces lit by the blue glow of their screens. "Sir, Europa Station has detected multiple unknown objects at the edge of our solar system," Officer Mike reported, his fingers flying over the control panel. "They're big, sir. Really big. Initial count shows over 300 vessels." Reed's face remained calm, but his mind was racing. 300 ships. This wasn't a small exploration fleet. This was something else entirely. "Show me," he commanded. The main screen came to life, displaying a cluster of massive ships. They weren't moving in any kind of military formation. Instead, they seemed to drift aimlessly, some of them rotating slowly in space. "Are they damaged?" Reed asked, leaning forward in his chair. "Looks that way, sir," Mike replied. "We're detecting massive energy fluctuations. Some ships appear to be running on emergency power. Others are completely dark." The bridge fell silent as everyone processed what they were seeing. First contact with alien life, and it looked like they had stumbled upon a disaster in space. Reed knew the next few minutes would be crucial. Earth's governments would be waking up to this news right now. Some would want to hide, to pretend they hadn't seen anything. Others would want to attack first, asking questions later. But as he looked at those damaged ships, he could only think of one thing. Someone out there needed help. "Open a channel," Reed ordered. "All frequencies, basic mathematical sequence. Let's let them know we're here." "Sir," Officer Lisa spoke up from her station. "Are you sure that's wise? We should wait for orders from Earth Command." Reed stood up, walking closer to the main screen. "Look at those ships, Lisa. They're not in attack formation. They're not even trying to hide. If they wanted to harm us, this would be the worst possible way to do it." He turned to face his crew. "And if those were our ships out there, damaged and alone, in an unknown system, wouldn't we want someone to help?" The crew nodded slowly, understanding their captain's decision. Mike began transmitting the signal, a simple sequence of prime numbers, the universal language of mathematics. For 10 long minutes, nothing happened. Reed could feel the tension on the bridge. Then, suddenly, a response came. "Sir," Mike called out excitedly. "They're responding. Same mathematical sequence, but there's more. They're sending images." The screen filled with pictures, damaged ships, failing systems, and what looked like thousands of pods containing sleeping aliens. The message was clear. They needed help. Reed straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. "Send them our coordinates and basic language package. Let them know we're willing to assist." He turned to his communications officer. "And get me a direct line to Earth Command. They need to know we're about to have company." As the crew rushed to follow his orders, Reed looked back at the screen showing the damaged alien fleet. In all his years of service, he never thought he'd be the one to make humanity's first contact with alien life. But here he was, about to offer help to beings from another world. "Sir," Mike called out again, "Earth Command is online. They don't sound happy." Reed allowed himself a small smile. "They rarely are, Mike. But sometimes doing the right thing is more important than following protocol." He squared his shoulders and prepared to defend his decision to his superiors. Whatever came next, humanity had just taken its first step into a much larger universe. And they had done it not with weapons or threats, but with an offer to help. 2 days after first contact, Captain Reed stood in the observation deck of the Guardian, watching as the first alien shuttle approached. The vessel sparkled like a diamond in the sunlight, its surface covered in what appeared to be living crystal. "Beautiful," he whispered, not realizing he had spoken out loud. "Yes, it is," Engineer Maria Wells agreed, standing beside him. She held her tablet tight, barely containing her excitement. "Our scans show the entire ship is grown, not built. It's like nothing we've ever seen." The alien shuttle docked with perfect precision. Reed straightened his uniform and headed to the airlock, followed by his first contact team. Everyone held their breath as the door slowly opened. The aliens that emerged were tall and slender, their skin having the same crystalline quality as their ships. Light seemed to pulse gently beneath their surface, creating patterns that shifted with their movements. Their leader stepped forward, raising a hand in greeting. "We are the Bright Star Collective," the alien spoke through a translation device. "I am Admiral Bright. We thank you for your offer of assistance." Reed could hear the hesitation in the alien's voice, even through the translator. "Welcome aboard the Guardian, Admiral. I'm Captain Reed. We're here to help in any way we can." The alien delegation followed Reed to the ship's conference room. As they walked, Reed noticed how the aliens kept looking around with what seemed like surprise. Once seated, Admiral Bright spoke again. "We must admit, Captain, we are confused. Our records suggested your species was less advanced. Yet here you are, reaching out to help us." Reed smiled. "Sometimes the simplest technologies are the most reliable, Admiral. Why don't you tell us what happened to your fleet?" The story that followed was tragic. The Bright Star Collective had lived in a binary star system. Their crystalline bodies evolved to absorb and process stellar energy, but one of their stars had begun to die, destabilizing their entire system. They had no choice but to evacuate their entire civilization. 2 million of our people sleep in crystal stasis," Admiral Bright explained, his light patterns dimming with sadness. "We thought we had plotted a safe course to another binary system, but a cosmic storm damaged our navigation systems. We've been drifting, trying to repair our ships, but our tools—" The Admiral paused. "Our technology requires specific stellar frequencies to function properly. In this system, they are failing." Maria Wells, who had been quietly taking notes, suddenly spoke up. "What if we could help you repair them using our technology instead?" The aliens turned to her, their patterns showing surprise. "Your primitive tools?" one of their engineers asked. Maria didn't take offense. Instead, she smiled. "Sometimes primitive is exactly what you need. Your ships are beautiful and advanced, but they're also incredibly complex. Our technology might be simpler, but that means it's more adaptable. We can modify it to work with your systems." The aliens discussed among themselves, their bodies flickering with rapid light patterns. Finally, Admiral Bright turned back to Reed. "Captain, our people have always believed that advancement meant complexity. We never considered that simplicity could be its own kind of advancement." The Admiral's body glowed brighter. "We would be grateful for your help." Reed nodded. "Then let's get started. We'll need to bring in more ships and engineers. How much time do we have before your life support systems fail?" "At current power levels, 30 Earth days," Admiral Bright replied. "Then we have no time to waste." Reed stood up. "Maria, gather your engineering team. I want preliminary repair plans within 24 hours. He turned to the aliens. "Admiral, with your permission, I'd like to send teams to inspect your ships. The more we understand your technology, the better we can help." As the meeting ended and the aliens prepared to return to their shuttle, Admiral Bright approached Reed privately. "Captain, I must ask, why are you helping us? Your people don't know us. We could be lying about everything." Reed considered the question carefully. "Because, Admiral, if humanity ever finds itself lost among the stars, we hope someone would do the same for us." Besides, he smiled, this is a chance to learn from each other. And that's what exploration is all about. The Admiral's crystalline form sparkled with what Reed was beginning to recognize as happiness. Perhaps their species weren't so different after all. Maria Wells stood in her workshop aboard the Guardian, surrounded by broken pieces of crystalline technology. For 5 days straight, she had tried to connect human tools to the alien systems. For 5 days straight, she had failed. "Come on," she muttered, wiping sweat from her forehead. "There has to be a way." The door opened, and Captain Reed walked in. He looked at the scattered tools and pieces of equipment covering every surface. "Any progress?" he asked, though the frustration on Maria's face answered his question. "Their technology is too advanced," she said, putting down her tools. "It's like trying to repair a quantum computer with stone tools. Everything we try either doesn't work or damages their systems even more." Reed picked up one of the crystal fragments, watching it sparkle in the light. "How much time do we have left?" 23 days before their life support fails completely." Maria slumped in her chair. "At this rate, we'll never figure it out in time." Reed was about to respond when alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Both of them rushed to the bridge, where Officer Mike was already at his station. "Report," Reed commanded. "Sir, we're detecting power failures in 3 more alien ships," Mike said, his fingers flying over the controls. "Their stasis pods are starting to fail. If we don't do something fast, we'll lose hundreds of lives." Reed turned to Maria. "We need a solution. Now." Maria stared at the screen showing the failing ships, her mind racing. Then her eyes widened. "Wait a minute. We've been thinking about this all wrong." She rushed back to her workshop, Reed following close behind. "We've been trying to make our digital technology work with their crystal systems," she explained as she dug through a box of old equipment. "But what if we went older? Much older?" She pulled out what looked like an ancient radio. "Analog technology." Reed looked confused. "How would that help?" "Their systems work by channeling energy, right? Like light through a prism." Maria was already taking the radio apart. "Digital systems try to convert everything to ones and zeros, but analog systems work with direct energy transmission. It's simpler, more basic, but that might be exactly what we need." She grabbed more old equipment. Analog amplifiers, basic wave generators, even some old copper wire. "Their crystals channel energy naturally. We don't need to convert it or control it. We just need to guide it." Within hours, Maria and her team had built what looked like a mess of old radio parts connected to crystalline fragments. The aliens watched with obvious doubt as she brought the device to one of their failing ships. "Trust me," she told Admiral Bright. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." She connected her makeshift device to the ship's power system. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the crystals began to glow. Power readings started to rise. "It's working." Mike's voice came through the radio. Power levels rising in all connected systems. The alien engineers crowded around the device, their bodies flickering with excitement as they studied its simple but effective design. "Impossible," one of them said. "How can such basic technology interface with our systems?" Maria smiled. "Because it's not trying to control your technology, it's working with it. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one." Reed watched from the Guardian as more engineering teams began building similar devices for the other ships. They had found their solution, and it had come not from humanity's most advanced technology, but from its past. "How long to implement this across the whole fleet?" he asked Maria. She did some quick calculations. "With all available teams working, maybe 2 weeks. We'll make it, Captain." Admiral Bright approached them, his crystalline form glowing brightly. "We had forgotten," he said, "that progress is not always about moving forward. Sometimes it requires us to look back, to remember simpler solutions." Reed nodded. "That's the thing about humans, Admiral. We never throw anything away if it might be useful someday." As they watched more repair teams heading out to the alien ships, Reed couldn't help but smile. Humanity had just proved that being less advanced didn't mean being less capable. Sometimes, it meant being exactly what was needed. Officer Mike's face turned pale as he stared at the long-range sensor readings. He checked them 3 times before calling Captain Reed. "Sir, you need to see this," he said, his voice shaking slightly. Reed was in the middle of a meeting with Admiral Bright when the call came. They both rushed to the bridge, where Mike pointed to the main screen. "A solar storm, sir," Mike explained. "The biggest I've ever seen. It'll hit our system in about 5 days." The screen showed a massive wave of solar energy heading straight for them. Even Admiral Bright's crystalline form dimmed at the sight. "With ships in their current state," the Admiral said quietly, "we cannot move out of its path in time. Even with your repairs helping, our engines aren't ready." Reed studied the storm's trajectory. "How bad will it be?" "Bad enough to fry every electronic system in the fleet," Maria Wells answered as she entered the bridge. "And their crystal technology is even more sensitive to solar radiation than ours. It could damage their stasis pods beyond repair." 2 million lives. 2 million sleeping aliens who would never wake up if they couldn't find a solution. Reed walked to the front of the bridge, staring out at Earth in the distance. Then he noticed something. Their planet's magnetic field was visible, a slight shimmer protecting them from the sun's regular radiation. "What if?" he started, then turned to face the others. "What if we use Earth itself as a shield?" Everyone stared at him. Maria was the first to understand. "Earth's magnetic field," she exclaimed. "We could position the fleet in Earth's magnetosphere, using it as a natural barrier against the storm." Admiral Bright's form flickered with interest. "Would your planet's magnetic field be strong enough?" "Not by itself," Maria admitted. "But—" She grabbed her tablet, fingers flying across the screen as she made calculations. "We have thousands of satellites in orbit. If we could reprogram them, link them together somehow, we could create an artificial extension of Earth's magnetic field." Reed finished. "A shield big enough to protect the fleet." The excitement in the room died down as everyone realized what this meant. They would need to convince Earth's governments to risk their entire satellite network, communications, GPS, weather monitoring, everything, to save an alien fleet. Reed straightened his uniform. "Mike, get me Earth Command." "Admiral, I may need your help explaining the situation." The next few hours were filled with tense negotiations. Government officials argued about risks, costs, and whether they should help at all. Some wanted to save only their own satellites and leave the aliens to their fate. Finally, Reed had enough. He stood up in the middle of the video conference. "Listen to me," he said firmly. 2 million lives are at stake. Yes, they're alien lives, but they're still lives. If we let them die when we could have helped, what does that say about humanity? Are we really willing to stand by and watch as 2 million people die, just because they weren't born on our planet? The room fell silent. Admiral Bright stepped forward, his crystalline form glowing softly. "We understand your hesitation," the Admiral said. "If our positions were reversed, we might have the same doubts. But by helping us, you prove something that many species in the galaxy have forgotten. That compassion and courage are not signs of weakness, but of true advancement." One by one, the governments agreed. Within hours, satellite control centers around the world began the massive task of repositioning their networks. "It's going to be close," Maria said, looking at the timeline. "We'll need to move every ship into position and set up the magnetic network before the storm hits." Reed nodded. "Then we better get started." He turned to his crew. "Send word to every available ship in Earth's fleet. We need tugboats, repair crews, everything we've got. We're about to attempt the biggest rescue operation in human history." As the orders went out, Reed looked at the alien fleet glittering in the distance. They had 5 days to save 2 million lives. It was time to show the galaxy what humanity could really do. 3 days before the solar storm's arrival, Earth's orbit had become the busiest construction site in human history. Hundreds of ships moved back and forth, guiding the massive alien vessels into position behind Earth's protective magnetic field. Maria Wells hadn't slept in 36 hours. She stood in the Guardian's control room, surrounded by screens showing the positions of thousands of satellites. Her team had already reprogrammed half of Earth's satellite network to create an artificial magnetic shield. "Status report," Captain Reed called as he entered the room. "We're at 60% coverage," Maria replied, taking a sip of cold coffee. "But we're running into problems with the older satellites. Their power systems aren't strong enough." Reed frowned. They needed every satellite they could get to strengthen the magnetic shield. Losing even a few could create weak spots in their defense. Just then, Admiral Bright entered with several of his engineers. Their crystalline forms pulsed with what Reed had learned was excitement. "We may have a solution," the Admiral said. "Your engineer Wells showed us how to use simple technology to work with our crystals. We believe we can do the same for your satellites." The alien engineers explained their plan. They could use small pieces of their ship's crystals to amplify the satellite's power output. The same simple analog connections that had helped repair their ships could now strengthen Earth's defenses. "But that would mean cutting pieces from your ships," Reed said. "Won't that damage them?" Admiral Bright's form dimmed slightly. "Yes, the cuts will be painful. But it is a small price to pay to save our people, and to repay your kindness." Maria's eyes widened as she did quick calculations. "With crystal amplifiers, we could double the shield's strength, maybe even triple it." Time was running out. Reed made the call. "Do it, and get me Earth Command. We'll need teams ready to catch any satellites that fail during the process." The next 2 days were a blur of activity. Human repair ships worked alongside alien engineers, carefully attaching crystal shards to satellites. Each time they activated a crystal, the satellite's power output surged, strengthening the magnetic shield. But they weren't just working. They were learning from each other. The aliens shared stories of their home system, of cities built from living crystal that sang in the light of their binary suns. Humans taught them about Earth's diversity, how their planet's challenges had forced them to find creative solutions to survive. "It's strange," Admiral Bright said to Reed as they watched the work. "We thought we were so advanced, but we forgot the most important lesson, that every species, every civilization has something valuable to teach." With just hours to spare, Maria called everyone to the control room. "The shield network is ready," she announced. "All satellites are showing stable power levels with crystal amplification." The screen showed their completed work. A web of satellites surrounding Earth's natural magnetic field, strengthened by alien crystals. It was the first time in history that human and alien technology had been combined on such a scale. "Now comes the hard part," Reed said. He turned to his crew. "Move the alien fleet into position behind the shield. We need every ship in the protected zone before that storm hits." As the final preparations were made, Reed watched the massive alien ships being guided into place. Just a week ago, these two species had been strangers. Now they were working together, sharing technology, risking their safety for each other. Mike's voice came over the speaker. "Sir, long-range sensors show the storm approaching. Time to impact. 3 hours." Reed nodded. They had done everything they could. Now they would find out if humanity's combination of simple technology and determination would be enough to save 2 million lives. "All ships, battle stations," he ordered. "This is going to be one hell of a storm." The solar storm arrived like a wall of fire. From the Guardian's bridge, Captain Reed watched as the first wave of energy struck Earth's outer magnetic field. The planet's natural defenses lit up like an aurora, spreading across the entire sky. "Shield status," Reed called out. "Holding steady," Maria replied from her station. "Crystal amplifiers are performing better than expected. Power levels at 95%. The alien fleet hung in space behind Earth's protective field, their crystalline hulls reflecting the storm's light. Admiral Bright stood beside Reed, his form pulsing with nervous energy. "The storm is stronger than predicted," the Admiral said quietly. "Much stronger." He was right. The second wave hit with even more force than the first. Warning alarms began to sound throughout the ship. 3 satellites down in Sector 7. Mike shouted. "Shield weakening at coordinates 42 Mark 15. Reed grabbed the ship-wide comm. "All repair teams, move to Sector 7. We need those satellites back online now." Human repair ships shot out from their holding positions, racing against time to fix the failing satellites. They worked with practiced efficiency, their crews having drilled for this moment for the past 3 days. But the storm wasn't finished. The third wave struck, more powerful than both previous ones combined. The shield network groaned under the assault. Multiple failures detected. Maria's voice was tense. "The crystal amplifiers are overloading. We're losing power across the network." Admiral Bright's engineers rushed to help, their bodies glowing with effort as they worked to stabilize the failing systems. But a gap was forming in the shield, right above the fleet's position. "If that hole gets any bigger, we'll lose the entire fleet," Maria warned. Reed looked at the tactical display. The main control satellite for that sector was failing. Without it, the entire shield network would collapse. He made his decision. "Helm, move the Guardian into position above the fleet. We'll use our ship's magnetic generators to plug that gap." "Sir," Mike protested, "our shields weren't designed to handle this kind of power. The ship won't survive." "Neither will 2 million sleeping aliens if we don't try," Reed replied. "Do it." The Guardian moved into position, its engines straining against the solar wind. Reed could feel the ship shaking as it took the full force of the storm. "Ship's shields at 40%, Mike reported. 30%, 20%. Suddenly, Admiral Bright stepped forward. "Captain, your ship's power systems, could they handle our crystal technology?" Reed turned to Maria. She thought for a moment, then her eyes widened. "The analog interfaces, yes, we could adapt them to." "No time to explain," the Admiral interrupted. He pulled a crystal from his own body, wincing at the pain. "Use this. It's part of my core energy matrix, much stronger than the fragments we used before." Maria took the crystal and ran from the bridge. Minutes later, the ship's power levels began to rise. "What's happening?" Reed asked. "The Admiral's crystal," Maria's voice came over the comm. "It's not just amplifying our power, it's transforming it. The ship's whole energy signature is changing." The Guardian's shields flared with new energy, a combination of human technology and alien crystal power never seen before. The gap in the defensive screen began to close. "Incredible," Mike whispered. "The crystal isn't just making our shields stronger, it's making them adapt to the storm." For 6 more hours, the combined fleet weathered the storm. When sensors finally showed the worst had passed, a cheer went up from both human and alien crews. Reed turned to Admiral Bright, who had been weakened by giving up part of his core crystal. "Admiral, I don't know how to thank you." The alien leader's form flickered weakly. "You were willing to sacrifice your ship to save my people. Sharing a piece of myself was the least I could do in return." As the storm's last remnants washed over their shields, Reed looked at his displays. Not a single alien ship had been lost. Against all odds, their desperate plan had worked. Humanity had just proved itself on the galactic stage, not through superior technology or military might, but through determination, creativity, and the willingness to risk everything to help others. 1 week after the solar storm, the Guardian's observation deck was crowded with both human and alien officials. They watched as the first group of crystal stasis pods were carefully awakened. After 2 million light-years of travel and a near disaster, the refugees were finally safe. Captain Reed stood next to Admiral Bright, whose form had slowly regained its brightness after donating his crystal core. The Admiral's sacrifice had not only saved the fleet, but had changed everything they thought they knew about combining human and alien technology. The first 100 pods are showing perfect revival signs, Maria reported, checking her readings. The storm didn't damage a single one. The pods opened with a soft hiss. Inside, crystal beings slowly awakened, their forms beginning to pulse with light as they took in their surroundings. Children, parents, scientists, artists, all of them seeing their new home for the first time. "I never thought I would live to see this day," Admiral Bright said quietly. "When we fled our dying system, we had hoped to find sanctuary. Instead, we found something far more valuable, friends." Earth's governments had been meeting nonstop since the storm passed. The successful defense of the alien fleet had proved something important. Humanity was ready for a larger role in the galaxy. A woman in a formal uniform stepped forward, the Secretary General of Earth's United Nations. She carried a document that had been signed by every nation on Earth. "Admiral," she said, "in light of recent events, Earth would like to offer your people something more than temporary sanctuary." She handed him the document. "We're offering you a permanent home." The Admiral's form brightened with surprise as he read. The agreement offered the Bright Star Collective permission to establish permanent settlements on Earth and its colonies. But it went even further. It proposed a formal alliance between their species. "You would share your world with us?" the Admiral asked. "You shared your technology with us," Reed pointed out. "More importantly, you trusted us when you needed help. That trust goes both ways." Maria stepped forward, holding up a small device, a combination of human electronics and crystal technology. "We've already learned so much from each other," she said. "Imagine what we could accomplish together." The device was proof of what their species could achieve. By combining Earth's primitive but reliable technology with the advanced crystal systems of the Bright Star Collective, they had created something entirely new. "There's more," the Secretary General added. "Several other spacefaring races have contacted us since news of the rescue spread. They're interested in opening diplomatic relations with Earth." Reed smiled. Humanity's actions during the crisis had sent a powerful message to the galaxy. They had proved that advancement wasn't just about technology. It was about compassion, creativity, and the courage to help others in need. "Captain Reed," Admiral Bright said formally, "the Bright Star Collective would like to offer Earth membership in the Galactic Council. Your actions have more than proved your species' readiness." A cheer went up from the assembled crowd. Humanity had not only saved 2 million lives, they had earned their place among the stars. As the celebration continued, Reed walked to the window and looked out at Earth. The planet's magnetic field still shimmered with traces of crystal energy, a visible reminder of what they had accomplished together. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Maria joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. Reed took one of the cups. "Did you ever think, when you were trying to fix those crystal systems with old radio parts, that it would lead to all this?" She laughed. "Honestly, I was just trying to keep those stasis pods working. But that's humanity for you. We solve one problem and end up changing the galaxy." Outside the window, more alien ships were arriving. Diplomatic vessels from other civilizations, eager to meet the species that had accomplished the impossible. Earth's orbit was becoming crowded with ships of all shapes and sizes. "You know what this means," Reed said, sipping his coffee. "We're going to need a bigger space station." As they watched, a group of human engineers and crystal beings began working together on plans for exactly that. A new station that would combine the best of both their technologies. It would be the first of many joint projects between their species. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, not through war or conquest, but through compassion, innovation, and the simple willingness to help those in need.